All right, diving into our main topic today, which is recess. Um, I've gone through and I took a deep dive on playground specific referrals, and I wanted to look at how's that been trending over the year. What's the breakdown between the playground and all of our building referrals? How much of that really is the physical aggression? How much of that physical aggression is happening by grade? So I'm going to break that down really quick here. So of all of our referrals at this point, we have had 375 major or minor referrals for the year. 99 of those, or 26% of those for the year, have been from the playground. So you can see the breakdown from month to month here of what percentage of those referrals for the month came from the playground. You can see November was a big one. We had the most referrals, the largest percentage of referrals in November, which is what triggered us to start that the Gaga Ball incentive. We were sitting at 43%, getting close to half of our referrals being from the playground. So we're trying to decrease that. If you look at the percentage of those, so of those 99 playground referrals, what percentage of those 99 playground referrals were for physical aggression? You can see here 74 out of 99, which is roughly 75% of those playground referrals were for physical aggression. Now, those aren't necessarily all majors. There's some minors in there as well. But again, you can see the breakdown month to month of how much of those referrals that are coming from the playground are for physical aggression. You can see again, November being our spike, we're 93%, 28 out of 30 referrals that came from the playground were for physical aggression. And then if you look at the grade level breakdown, you can see for the full year, the percentage of where they're coming from the grade level, and then all the way down through currently in December, which is right now, we've only been into December, a week. So there's not a lot there, but you can see the breakdown, the percentages here across the grade level. So you can take a look at that as well. So why is this happening? Like, what are the things that we're seeing out there that are causing these physical aggressions? And again, these aren't all necessarily major things, but there are, in general, a lot of just physical students being overly physical, whether they are just playing too rough, and that's general horseplay. They're just messing around, tackling each other, doing something that's probably unsafe and could potentially get somebody hurt. So there's that. We've got the competitiveness. You kind of saw here. There's some larger numbers in first and second grade. Well, they're doing more of the competitive sports. They're out there. Soccer is a big one. They're playing football, or they're playing even tag. At times has been too aggressive, where they're just tagging too hard. So the competitiveness, poor sportsmanship, being good winners and good losers. And so, we've had some poor sports who get upset and they'll go over and kick somebody, or they'll go over and shove somebody or something like that. And then as of late, just so everybody's aware, the other day, just this week, I had a large group of second grade students, boys, that I brought down for playing a new game that they've called Trip Tag. So just be aware of that if you hear that on the playground. But essentially, there's not really any tag element to it. It's really just let's leg sweep somebody, kick them to the ground, and then jump on top of them. So that's really all it is. I wouldn't call it so much of a game as just beating up on each other. So if that is witnessed or heard of, I've had some specific talks with students about that game in particular. So be aware of that. But some of those games where it's just, obviously not going to be an allowable thing, but they're getting creative and making up their own games if they can't play other ones, and they're not always the most safe. So that's kind of in general. There's some outliers there of some other things that have happened, but in general, these are like the things that are mainly happening that are falling into that physical aggression category. So up until now, what's been done up until now? So, obviously this has been something we've recognized for a while now. Beginning of the year, I was fielding several phone calls from parents being concerned about it. We've had, obviously we've had some PBIS incentives and things like that we've tried to do to encourage students to behave the correct way outside, or the expected way outside. But as of now, largely we've handled this on an individual basis. So as it's happened, If as the students who have been displaying that behavior have come to the office, or they've been sent inside, or they've had to sit out, we've kind of mainly just handled that on an individual basis. At certain times, certain activities have been discontinued. There's been times when soccer has been taken out of the rotation, or just kind of taken away for a brief time before they got it back. So we've discontinued specific events. We've had some students, as needed, we've had students on behavior plans where recess is a piece of their behavior plan. We've had students lose recess, and that's in some of those plans if they have any sort of physical aggression or behavior. Then they know that they are to sit out of the recess, the next upcoming recess, or the recesses for the rest of the day. And at times we've had suspensions. So we're trying to address those as they've come. But as you see there, we're kind of running into a spot where this feels like it's a little bit more widespread, and so we're trying to get to the bottom of this and address it. And so, one other thing that we did talk about, this was in our last month, the flipped staff meeting from November. But we worked on putting together some playground-specific consequences. So this, again, I added this in here again, that these are things that we can try to do, but just trying to have some consistency in what those consequences may be. So if it's a minor thing, these are the range of things that could happen. But obviously, we want to talk to the student, reteach what's expected there. But could potentially be a short-term loss of recess, couple minutes or so. Bigger things, obviously, is more of a time loss, more of an office referral, contacting parents, that whole thing. And obviously the big stuff, they're coming to me, they're losing entire recesses, extended loss of recesses, that sort of thing. So this is here, but again, the purpose of this was just to get some consistency in how we provide consequences. We don't want to have, one person who may, say, we're going to reteach this behavior, and then another person who is instead going to have that person sit out for an entire recess. There are at times a range of consequences, and so we're just trying to get some consistency there. It also helps just students know what to expect if they are, choosing to act a certain way. So that is there again for reference. So now, moving forward, so what are things that we've tried, and what are things that we have considered moving forward? So we talked about our playground expectations. So obviously we teach those every fall, and typically we'll come back and we'll teach those after the winter break. So we do have that planned out. However, in saying that, I'll jump down to this bullet point here. We are looking at, are there revisions that we need to make to our playground expectations, or our procedures, or just how the playground overall just operates. So we're wanting to have some of those conversations and have some of that discussion, which partly is why we're bringing this to your attention today, to try to hopefully gather any other thoughts or ideas, or things that may be helpful or useful information moving forward. We've also, added little notes on the announcements of hey, things to remember. How do they tie to the monthly character word, or, trying to give, acknowledge students who have done a good job out there, or done something, with the good things. We've tried to squeeze that into morning announcements where we can. We obviously did the Gaga Ball incentive, but we're not successful in reducing the number of percentage of playground referrals. We're starting to do SAGE groups and social skills groups. Heather and Tracy and Brooke are working on putting those social skills lessons, those SAGE groups and SEL groups together to provide some of those social skills, and try to teach students and incorporating that in within that, incorporating conversations about what it means to be a gracious winner, how to avoid being a poor sport, overall sportsmanship. Those are things that we want to work into those conversations, and have been working into those conversations. And obviously, just as of late, we brought in some OJTs, which I'm going to kind of segue this conversation for just a moment and talk about supervision. Supervision has been an issue. And not because people are just not showing up to their duty. That's not really been the issue. The issue is we are just short-staffed almost on a daily basis. When we have paras who are gone, or people who are out sick, or whatever reason we are short staffed, we have to move. We have to do some shuffling. So every morning, start my day by checking out Frontline and seeing who's out, who needs subs, who needs to be moved, who needs to be shuffled. And when that happens, which it happens almost daily, we have to move somebody, and that ends up changing their duty time, and it moves them to a different spot. Where we then still have to ensure that they get breaks. We have to then ensure that they still get a lunch and have that time built in. But it changes our duty supervision almost on a daily basis, and that's unfortunately that's kind of the reality we live in. We have this legal responsibility to make sure our students are getting those supports that are within their IEPs. So we have to try as best we can to provide that support, but it leaves us shorthanded in other areas. So that's something that we need to. I just want everybody to be aware of. But it is not the case in what I've found so far. It has not been the case that people just aren't showing up. It seems like the people that are available have been where they need to be. It's just a matter of being shorthanded, which then led us to the conversation about OJTs. So knowing that this is we don't have subs, we are shorthanded. This is a daily scenario that we run into. I had reached out to the high school. I reached out to Shelly Dua there, who oversees the OJTs, to see if they had any students available. Unfortunately, they came through, and we have 3 students currently who are coming in, and potentially a 4th here in the near future, with the intention of having them provide an extra set of eyes and ears. But not only that, moving forward, I want to have them organize some activities for the students. So whether they are out pitching for a kickball game, or refereeing a soccer activity, or doing sidewalk chalk, or doing double dutch, jump ropes, whatever it is, having them organize some activities, because the students really like when the adults or older students come out and play with them. They seem to enjoy that and really gravitate toward those. So trying to encourage that, because that'll hopefully take some of it'll lessen some of the need for the widespread supervision. A lot of kids will kind of gravitate toward those fun activities where it's supervised and facilitated by one of those OJTs. But also it's somebody who has eyes and ears on that specific activity. So, but once again, with the OJTs, they cannot hand out any discipline. They're not bound to that by any means. My intent with them is just to have them there to facilitate some activities. And at times they can be eyes and ears. So if something were to happen out there, if they happen to see it or witness it, they may be able to provide some information on that. But beyond that, their role is really not out there to hand down any consequences or anything like that. They are there to be eyes and ears and facilitate some activities. So, but we do have them coming in. So we're set to have them at least through this trimester. And then I've talked to Shelly already about trying to coordinate some students and even some student volunteers that maybe aren't necessarily OJTs, but just some volunteers to come in beyond that. So that's something that's in the works that we're trying to work in. Right now, they're just out there trying to, meet the students and build relationships there. So a little bit of a segue, but just so everybody's aware that playground supervision is an issue. And one last thing I'll say about that is the OJTs providing their having them come in, that really only supports us during the lunch hour, which fortunately was our time that we had the most significant need. That's when everybody's on their own lunches and breaks and things like that. But it doesn't really help us in the grade level specific or the non-lunch recess supervision. So that's still something I'm trying to figure out how to navigate. But anyway, that's one thing that we're looking at. Additionally to that, we have I mentioned kind of revising some of the playground expectation procedures. I mentioned the OJTs just now. But things we've talked about, rotating some activities in and out. So maybe soccer is available this week, and then the next week we take the soccer balls out and we put something different in place, or we have like an assortment of different things that they can do, so that they don't get over time they tend to start to bend the rules a little bit in their favor when they can. but also getting bored of certain activities or having the same issues that keep coming up. Keep switching it up so they have something new and fresh to be entertained, and they may be more encouraged to follow the rules of the game that way a little bit more. Zoning supervision, knowing that we're shorthanded with supervision. We've talked about having potential zones where we try to ensure that we have somebody in these specific areas at all times, whenever possible. But zoning supervision, if we can. We talked about finding some alternate activities. So are there other things that we can have out on the playground that we don't currently have that would be of interest to students? That's maybe an opportunity where we get some student voice on that, some things that they wish they had out there that may be of interest and would maybe draw some, not as many students doing one particular activity might spread the student body out a little bit more. And then lastly, just implementing some variations to current activities. So one in particular, and I keep coming back to soccer, but soccer has been really our big one where, we have students who are being poor sports. They don't really understand the spacing of the game. So, they're all huddled around the same ball, kicking each other in the shins, and then somebody will try to come in and slide tackle. And so it's just not a it's not a very good setup for a game. They're not really skilled enough or have the knowledge or the gameplay knowledge to be able to do that successfully. So we've talked about, are there variations of soccer that we could provide? As a former PE teacher, I remember doing things like quad soccer where they had zones that they had to stay in, and it kind of got them to space out more. They were encouraged to pass it through 2 zones before they could try to score a goal. Got them into using teammates and passing instead of just trying to take it down the field themselves and score a goal. So those are other things that we can try to implement. We're kind of going into the season right now where the weather's changing, and some of those more competitive activities, the soccer, the football, those are going to be a little bit more limited because we could potentially have snow on the ground or those sorts of things. So the weather may inhibit some of those activities as it is. So we have a little bit of time maybe to work on some of those things. But those are things that we've considered. Those are things that we've talked about, things that we're trying to navigate and trying to see how we can implement those in the coming months and to finish out this year. So those are just some thoughts and ideas that we have had in some discussions, and I'm just kind of sharing those with you today. But if you have thoughts or ideas, please share those. Whether it's thoughts about what I've shared here today, thoughts on any of these ideas, or if you have any other ideas that may be beneficial and help with some of the playground, whether it's supervision or procedures or activities or any of that stuff, it would be helpful just to kind of get some additional ideas as we try to work through this and reformat or restructure our playground and recess procedures and expectations. So with that, as a exit ticket at the bottom here, you'll have a Google form just to submit if you have any thoughts or ideas. You can put that through there for us to take a look at. And then lastly, just a quick reminder, we have the food drive going on through December, talking about that character word of caring for the month of December. So if you have any students who are bringing in food or non-perishables, any of that, make sure you bring it down to the office. We have them all collected in that window outside the main office. And then I've posted this on Facebook, so if you would please repost this or share it on your pages just to kind of get the word out further. There will also be an all call coming out just reminding parents about the food drive. But we've been trying to collect as much of that as we can. If we collect enough of it, we hopefully want to be able to give this out to some of our more needy families. If we don't have a ton that we've collected, we may also consider donating to HAYCAP or a food shelter or anything like that. So anyways, that's just a quick reminder about the food driver. Please share that if you can. And with that, I have nothing else to share. And so I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Thank you.